that within. So, I owe so much to my team who made this whole collaboration possible. But in terms of the technology, I do want to paint a picture of what our live performance looked like, because it's technically should have been impossible. It was a live performance outdoors at Prospect Park in Brooklyn with 6,000 people. We developed an app that everyone downloaded onto their cell phones. We passed out 6,000 cardboard headsets and created a 360-degree soundscape that surrounded the whole entirety of Prospect Park. So everyone would be under the stars listening to the live space opera, but also feeling the rumbles of the soundscape all around them. And not only that, we had to unlock a force field of Wi-Fi that was probably the strongest in all of Brooklyn. So when we first had this idea, everybody in the VR community told us that there was too many points of failure for this to be a success. And so I think, that's what this world is that's what's so exciting about this world, is that you are doing things that have probably never been done before, and people will always tell you that they're impossible. But I think that's what's so exciting about what we're doing.
Right. So to speak a little further to that sort of idea, someone said to me the other day that what excited them most about working in VR right now was what a frontier it is, and what he said was everything's a prototype. Like everything from the get-go is a heretofore insoluble problem. So I'd be curious to know from you guys, first of all, if you agree, but also when you launch into a project and you have a narrative you want to express in the beginning, middle, and end maybe, how much of it is already envisioned in your mind, and how much of it do you rely on the process to create almost as a byproduct? Like how many of the things that end up in your content are happy accidents, and how many are things that you were clear about going in, or is that impossible to quantify?
Do I go first? That's a very good question, and I think it, again, I don't have a straight answer because it depends project to project, but I would say that I love this idea of the work being a prototype, and I think it's always, when I was saying that this beast or organic process that just keeps demanding, it's like you follow the demands of the project, and I think that is the best way to think about a process. So regarding, I'll talk about another project maybe as an example, which is called Blackout, which is premiering at Tribeca in 2 days. And the Blackout is a project where we are essentially opening up this virtual world and inviting New Yorkers to join our subway train. And the idea is it's a documentary. It's real people and real stories. And how are you going to come and ride this train with a bunch of strangers and meet these different people talking about things that affect their lives? They're talking about gentrification, to discrimination, to Trump, anything of issues of the day through a personal lens. And the idea is that you never meet the same people twice, and it's an evolving cast, and it's a living document. And how would you even have a vision of what that will be? So we have to we create the world, we create the parameters, and right now it's we're every day capturing different people and interviewing different people. We don't even know what stories we're getting, and that's, I think, the best example of a prototype documentary. It's an experiment, but it's a beautiful one, and we don't know where it's going and where it's going to be, but at least I don't know how else to say it. It's an exciting process. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A journey.
A journey, yeah.
So I've always been attracted to prototypical areas of creation. I think, whether it was the installation stuff we were doing, or what ultimately brought me drew me to VR is, the medium in itself is a form of storytelling, and you can only tell certain stories. I like the technologies allowing us to tell stories that we just couldn't tell before. You could tell them, but you couldn't experience them. And the experience of a story is so much of what a story is. In fact, a story is, whether it's written, whether it's heard, or it's meant to make you live an experience, however it's coming into you. And having this new, insanely immersive medium is just the most exciting thing ever. So Yes, definitely. It's all, everything's a prototype today. That being said, we've done, like I said, about 20 experiences so far, and our sort of methodology has been very iterative. It's really been about building on what we know with almost every piece we make. Taking, yes, leaps and risks, but rarely do we kind of throw everything out the window and start from scratch. I think there's a calculated sort of risk to everything we do, and interestingly, I think talking about upcoming work is a good sort of makes sense in the context of this question. So we're also releasing in 2 days a piece, which in a way is one of the biggest leaps we've done. So it's a documentary we shot at the White House just before Barack and Michelle left. So we shot this in November. Actually, we were at the White House on November 9th, which was pretty insane.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, we shot there for about a week, and unlike almost everything we had made up until that point, where the viewer is either themselves in a documentary or a very concrete physical character, as in Miyubi that we saw a photo of before, in this case, you're actually kind of traveling through the memories of the president and Michelle of the White House. So we knew this would come out once they wouldn't be there anymore. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't about while we were there shooting, it was about that time as a memory in the future. Mm-hmm. And so we shot it in a way that was more evocative of the spaces than it was of you're actually there. So it kind of alternates between you are there with the president as he talks to you, and then you kind of go into these moments, the president or Michelle, and then you go into these moments where you hear their voice and you're kind of traveling through their memories. And this was, really something we didn't know if it was going to work or not, but we felt like we really needed to try this, and it was a small project and not very important, so we figured we could take a major risk there.
Swing it.
And I think it was one of the most liberating things we've done in the past 3.5 years. We've been doing VR, these floating cameras, and now almost everything else we're developing, we're like, but it's all built on the foundation of things that work. Mm-hmm. We kind of let go of one major thing that always worked for us, which was this is the viewer, and the viewer's there, and then build around that. And then this was the first time we're like, all right, let's take that leg off the table, and hopefully the other three are going to hold it together, and it did. So, yeah.
So that specific effect felt like something you built on really explicitly from the Yosemite piece you did with President Obama, where you shot a series of very beautiful but static time lapses. Mm-hmm. And then I believe in the new version, what you've got is again very elegant long exposure time lapses, but shot on a dolly or a moving camera. Was that a conscious evolution as a storytelling tool in the way you're describing from what you?
Yeah, in a way. So the time lapses in the Yosemite piece were in a way. So you were still there and sitting there. But since we wanted to express a timelessness of these parks and why they were so important to preserve, we were transcending time in that way. It was like you were there going through time. Right. Whereas with this, we wanted to, yes, we were definitely building on that, both technically and creatively. But instead, we wanted to give an impression of retrospective. Yeah.
Very intentional. Eliza, I always have the impression when you talk about your work, as you've been doing for the last few minutes, that you have total crystal clarity about what you expect your creative outcome to be. Is that just a really good actor? Like, are you clear going in, or is the prototype approach yours? Are you hacking away at it until it looks like a lion?
Yeah, I'm kind of hacking away. I think for me, it's all about creating a feeling, and so. I do have a very vivid idea of what the piece will look like, and I have that all sort of, before going into production, I'll always have that, storyboarded out and have a very thorough idea. But then there's just so many things that you can't you can't understand until you see it and feel it and play with it and interact with it. And that's kind of like where I am right now with, I'm currently building a project called Pale Blue Dot, which is an interstellar journey through our universe. So a little bit of a much larger scale exploration of the cosmos. And it involves interactive elements. And the only way to, to really feel if that works is just to go inside of it and play with it. Mm-hmm. And I find often what doesn't work is timing and pacing and the way a shadow falls over the side of the earth. It might feel too rushed. And those are things that you just, you can plan it, but when you see it, So I think that's kind of how I work, is I try to go in with a very clear picture and then sort of throw everything away.
Can we go back to talking about baggage and rules just a little bit? Because one of the consistent themes you all referenced when talking about your process was unlearning. So I'm curious, first of all, about the converse of that, the flip side, because there must be elements to your education and your experience and what you brought with you that is important and valuable and additive to what you do. But it also seems, is it true, I guess is my question, that an important intrinsic ingredient for your teams is the ability to let go of their baggage and to let go to unlearn previously sort of sticky concepts they may come to the table with? Is that critical?
Absolutely. I would say at least for our first project, 0 Days, and coming up with Blackout, I think we could not make either project unless we let go of our baggage and be willing to fail and make mistakes. And I think it's it's when you make these kind of maybe baby steps and willing to fail or willing to make these mistakes, you find these happy accidents in the process. And I think there is no other way. We're not standing on years of design practice or any type of learning. So I think the only way you can really push the boundaries is if you are willing to unlearn and learn new things and make the mistakes and share these mistakes. And I would like to think of it as controlled chaos. There's something really beautiful about it being so immature of a medium, but also so much space to explore and learn from your colleagues and people working in the space right now.
Let me switch tacks just a little bit because I realize we'd like to leave a little bit of time for questions, but I do have, relating back to, Eliza, your point about the presentation of your content and this massive, risky scale you undertook with your 6,000 person same screening. I'm curious on a more sort of granular level, Paul, maybe you can answer this first of all, because I think you've had some experience. Storytelling in 360 in the news feed versus in the headset and the more deeply immersive medium. How's it differed for you, and have you modulated the content based on the platform?
Yeah, so I think the best example of that was the LeBron James piece we did about a year ago. So it was, in VR, it was a 13-minute experience, and you asked us, you were just coming out with Facebook 360 at the time, and you guys asked us to create a 360 video. And at first we resisted, because we're like, no, we made a VR, this is VR, it's like pure. But then we thought about it, and we're like, okay, no, there is a way to modulate this, and really what kind of clinched it for us was, it was a lot of stuff we'd shot that we hadn't put in the VR experience because it didn't work. And we're like, well, maybe this is a chance to get some of this stuff, to give some of this stuff a second life.